So, dear participant, welcome once again. So, welcome to the session 38 session of day 5, Wadla 3.0 on topic recent trends in deep learning and applications. So, today we have eminent speaker Mohammad Uzair Khattak from NVIDIA. So, he is going to talk about transferability of foundational vision language models for downstream vision tasks. So before starting his talk, so I would like to introduce Mohammad Uzair Khattak. So Mohammad Uzair is an upcoming PhD candidate at the Max Planck Institute for Informatics, advised by Professor Bernd Siceli. Additionally, he will be the supervised by the Federico Tomberry from Google Zurich. He completed his MSc in computer vision at MBZ Abu Dhabi under the supervision of Professor Salman and Professor Fayed Khan. His master's research focused on the transferability of vision language foundational models for various vision applications, including object recognition, video action recognition, and object detection. His research proposed several efficient adaptation methods to guide VL models towards downstream tasks while maintaining their original generalization capabilities. His work has been published in prestigious computer vision and machine learning conferences such as CVPR, ICCB, and Neuro IPS. So once again, thank you very much, Mohammad Uzair, for joining this session. Now the session is over to you.
Okay, hi everyone, and thank you very much, Dr. Rakesh, for the introduction. So I will just share my screen. So are the slides visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So today I will be presenting some of our research work in the field of multimodal learning. So the title of today's talk is Transferability of Foundational Vision Language Models for Downstream Vision Tasks. So a little bit about myself. I recently completed my master's degree in computer vision from Mohammed bin Zayed University of AI in Abu Dhabi. And before that, I completed my bachelor's in electrical engineering from National University of Science and Technology in Pakistan. So during my master's, my main research focus was on the effective transfer of vision language models for downstream image and video tasks. And the high level goal is to fine tune or adapt these multimodal models for video understanding tasks, which includes action recognition, image recognition generalization tasks such as few shot and zero shot classification, and also how we can expand those models for open vocabulary object detection. So first, I will provide a brief introduction to foundational models in vision, and then I will proceed with our research works regarding that. So nowadays, foundational models have become a new hot topic. So we can call them, nowadays as a foundational model era. So these models are typically pre-trained on large corpus of data. So this data is basically obtained from the internet. So they have a very high scale. So, and because of the type of the data set, which is typically obtained from the internet, they do not contain very rich annotations. So these models typically rely on self-supervised loss functions or objectives to pre-train their models. So most common objective functions are contrastive loss and next token prediction, which has been employed for the training of large language models. So the popular examples of these foundational models includes CLIP, GPT, Llama, etc. And on the right side, the figure shows a high-level architectural diagram of a CLIP model, which is a vision language model, and which is the main focus of today's talk. So a little bit more about the CLIP model. So CLIP stands for Contrastive Language Image Pre-training. So this model has a dual encoder architecture, which means that we have a text encoder, which processes the text descriptions, and we have an image encoder, which processes the corresponding images. So the image and text encoder are typically based on transformer and ResNet architectures. So the image encoder or the image backbone can be a ResNet model, or it can be a VIT, such as a vision transformer. At the text side, we typically use a transformer-based encoder model. During the pre-training, the CLIP model uses 400 million image text pairs from the internet to pre-train their encoders. And the training objective is contrastive loss. And the contrastive loss main goal is to maximize the similarity of the image text samples which are paired with each other. By paired, I mean that a caption of a class and an image of a class. So these are the paired examples. So we want to maximize their similarity. And at the same time, we want to minimize the similarity of unpaired image text samples. So if we want to illustrate this in a diagram, so for example, I have an image of a dog and I have its caption which describes this image. So I will pass it to the text encoder to get the text embedding T1. At the same time, I will pass the image and I will obtain the corresponding image as well. And then I will get a matrix which will show all the possible pairs and I will calculate their similarity. So for example, we can calculate the cosine similarity as a similarity metric. And then the diagonal elements are the ones which are referring to the aligned image text pairs, and the non-diagonal elements are the scores for the unaligned image text pairs. So the contrastive loss objective function will enforce that we increase the values in the diagonal elements and we decrease the elements in the decrease the values in the non-diagonal elements. So this is achieved with the help of contrastive loss. So once the CLIP model is pre-trained, how we can use it for our computer vision applications. So the one of the simplest downstream application is zero-shot image classification. And the steps are as follows. So first of all, we will calculate the text embeddings. So if we have a given test image for which we would like to calculate its corresponding label, we will first curate a set of possible class names which might be associated with this image. So for example, plane, car, dog, and so on. And then we will wrap each of the name in some template. For example, a photo of an object, and this object can be any of those names. And then we will pass to the text encoder to obtain the text embeddings. So T1 up to Tn, these are the possible embeddings of possible class names. At the same time, we will calculate the image embedding, and now we will calculate the similarity of this image embedding with all the text embeddings. And for the classification, we will simply select the class that has the highest similarity with the image. So in this case, the dog embedding, which is T3, has the highest similarity with the I1 in this whole vector. So we will say that this image belongs to dog. So in terms of other performance comparison, this is shown here. So we have different data sets such as ImageNet and its different out of distribution data sets. And we have ResNet 101, which is standard vision backbone. And then we have a CLIP model, which is pre-trained in with the contrastive loss. So overall, we can see that the CLIP model shows much better robustness as well as much better performance as compared to the standard vision backbone. So for example, in the case of ImageNet adversarial, the CLIP model shows very good performance, but the standard vision backbone is kind of failed at this case. So this shows the significance of using vision language models to solve our vision problems. So there are other impressive characteristics of those foundational models. The first one is open vocabulary, which means that at the test time, I do not have to be worried about a closed set number of categories. Instead, I can recognize any open set category at test time, which can be defined in natural language description. And these models are effectively transferable to downstream tasks. There are many works which have used CLIP for segmentation, detection, and other applications. And these models are highly generalizable. And by generalizability, I mean that a single model can be used for multiple data sets at the same time. So what is the research statement on which I am working on? So the main goal is how we can effectively steer the behavior of those foundation model and adapt them for our user-defined downstream task. So for example, if I have my own data set, how I can fine-tune this model further to improve its performance on my custom data set or on my task. So now I will present our first work in this direction. which is titled as Maple Multimodal Prompt Learning, and this has been accepted to this year's CVPR 23 conference. So I will just reiterate the problem statement again. What is our goal? We want to adopt these large-scale vision language models like CLIP for image recognition tasks. And there are other limitations or constraints associated with it, that the downstream data set is very limited. So we are working in a zero shot or few shot setting. So we do not have a lot of samples to train. And also, while we are doing this adaptation, we do not want to compromise on the inherent generalization of CLIP model. So among the existing solution, one straightforward way is to undergo full fine-tuning, just like the rest of vision models in which we perform fine-tuning on our data set. However, for the case of foundation model, it is not trivial. There are several limitations and constraints. First of all, because of the data scarcity, we do not have much samples to train the massive foundation model, which leads to training instability. And at the same time, if we fine-tune our model end-to-end, there is a risk of losing generalization, because now we are updating all the weights of the model, and we might lose the generalization which is acquired during the pre-training stage. And also with the full fine-tuning, there is a huge compute cost associated as well. So as an alternative solution, many works have taken inspiration from the NLP domain, and instead they propose to perform prompt tuning at the language side. So what does the prompt tuning means? It has been illustrated in this diagram. So given a text encoder of CLIP and given an image encoder of CLIP, we keep both the models frozen, which is denoted by the log sign, and we just introduce some learnable vectors which are called as prompts at the text input of the at the input space of the text model. So these learnable prompts are learned while the whole other model components are kept frozen, and this model is then fine-tuned. So this is what prompt tuning means, and this is very effective because we are not disturbing the original representations of those models because they are frozen, and at the same time we are fine-tuning it on our data set. However, there are several limitations in these existing prompt tuning methods, which we have identified in our work. So the first issue is that these works focus on unimodal solution. So as we can see that the prompts are adapting the text branch of the CLIP model, but the image branch is not trained at all or not adapted at all. So this ignores the adaptation of visual branch for better transfer learning. And we know that CLIP image encoder is also equally responsible for determining the final performance, but it is not adapted at all. So this is kind of partial prompting. So our argument is that prompting or the fine-tuning should instruct the model completely, not partially. So in order to address the challenges in the previous works, we propose a new training paradigm, which we call as multimodal prompt learning. In multimodal prompt learning, we dynamically adjust the both branches of CLIP for better transfer. So in contrast to existing methods, our multimodal prompt learning method additionally learns learnable prompts at the image side as well. So this ensures that both the branches are fine-tuned in order to improve the performance. And in addition to that, we learn hierarchical vision language deprompting, which also utilize prompts in the subsequent transformer blocks inside the text encoder and the image encoder as well. This hierarchical deprompting helps to learn stage-wise feature relationships that allows further rich context learning. And lastly, we also try to establish the interaction, the explicit interaction between the language and image prompts, and then we use a vision and language coupling function, which kind of conditions the vision prompts on the language prompts. So this ensures multiple linkages between the both branches and ensures mutual synergy. So in terms of performance, we evaluate our model, and the high-level result comparison is shown here in the last figure. So here the Maple is our approach, and the CoCop and previous methods are the previous existing state-of-the-art methods. So where we show that in the challenging base to novel generalization setting, our method performs favorably well across a number of data sets. So here we show the high-level architecture of Maple. So in the top row, we have a text encoder, and on the bottom row, we have the image encoder. So the given a text description, we first convert it into tokens, and alongside with these tokens, we introduce learnable vectors, which are denoted in red color. So these learnable vectors are also passed to the coupling function to project them to the vision space, and these are then used as a visual prompts. And also we introduce hierarchical prompts in the subsequent blocks as well, and the vision blocks or the vision prompts are kind of conditioned on the language prompts with the help of these F coupling blocks. And in our implementation, the coupling function is implemented as a linear projection layer, which we found out as a much better option in our ablation studies. So in the whole architecture, only the red components are learnable, while the text encoder, the layers, and the image encoder and its corresponding layers are kept frozen. And our model is then fine-tuned with the prompts. So here we show some of the visualization in terms of T-and-Cine plots between the previous method and our proposed method. So the upper row shows the result for the previous state-of-the-art method, which are unimodal, and the lower row shows the results of our proposed technique, Maple, which is multimodal. So if we just look into the results of Eurosat for the CoCop, which is the previous state-of-the-art method, the embeddings of different classes are kind of mixed together, and on the other hand, our Maple approach kinds of also adjusts the image representation as well, which leads to much better clustering and separation of the different classes from other classes. And this is the same for the novel classes as well. So further, we conduct evaluation on 3 representative generalization benchmarks. So the first benchmark is base to novel generalization. So this is the most commonly used benchmark in this setup. So in which we split a data set into 2 parts. We split the data set into base classes and novel classes. Then we train the model on the base classes, and then we only evaluate it on the base classes as well as on the novel classes of their respective test sets. So this kind of ensures or evaluates the generalization of the model within a data set. The second benchmark is cross data set evaluation, in which we train a model on ImageNet data set and we directly evaluate it on the rest of data sets without further fine-tuning. And the last benchmark is domain generalization, in which we again use ImageNet dataset as a source dataset and train the model, and then we evaluate the same model on out of distribution datasets without further fine-tuning. So before comparing our approach with existing state-of-the-art method, in this slide we show the effect of individual component as a kind of ablation. So the first row shows Maple shallow result, and Maple shallow means that we are not utilizing deep prompting, and we are just using learnable prompts in the initial input space. So the base class accuracy, novel class accuracy, and harmonic mean are favorable in this case. In the second row, we show the result for deep vision prompting. In the vision prompting, we only learn vision prompts and its hierarchical combination in the vision branch, and we do not adapt anything in the text branch. This also shows comparable performance against Maple shallow. In the third row, we train deep language prompting. In the deep language prompting, we only train the language branch of CLIP with the deep language prompting, and we do not use any visual prompts. This shows much better performance than the previous 2 variants, which also signifies that the language prompts are much better or crucial for adaptation as compared to the vision side prompting. Lastly, we combine the row 2 and row 3 to form independent vision language prompting, which learns prompts at the both sides. And this shows much better performance against all the previous variants, which is kind of our main contribution, that we should kind of prompt the model from both the sides. And lastly, we can try to adapt the model with the conditioning block with the help of our coupling function, which further improves the performance and leads to the best accuracy across all the metrics. So now we compare our method with the existing state-of-the-art method in the base to novel generalization benchmark. Here we show the results which are averaged across 11 datasets. So against the CoCop, our Maple method shows much better performance. It consistently improves over the base classes, novel classes, and which also leads to the highest harmonic mean. For the base classes, co-op, which is also an existing method, this roughly performs a bit better in terms of base classes. But in case of generalization, Maple performs consistently better. For the cross data set transfer setting, we train a model on ImageNet and then we directly evaluate it on target data sets. This shows the generalization of the prompts learned on one data set towards the other data sets. So here, the Maple method performs overall better in majority of the data sets, which leads to the highest average accuracy of 66.3% against the previous state-of-the-art methods. For the domain generalization benchmark, again, we train the model on ImageNet and evaluate it on the out-of-distribution datasets of ImageNet. This includes ImageNet V2, ImageNet Sketch, ImageNet Adversarial, and ImageNet Rendition. So on majority of the datasets, Maple approach shows favorable performance, which means that Maple is also beneficial to be used for out-of-distribution cases. Next, we perform further analysis to Maple in order to understand that in which circumstances or in which situation Maple performs better than other approaches. So here in this plot, we show the per class accuracy improvement of Maple over the CoCop, where CoCop is the previous state-of-the-art method. And we have listed 5 datasets from left to right in the order of increasing their domain shift or in the order of increasing their diversity. So for example, Caltech mostly contains the generic objects, while the Eurosat on the very right, it is totally very diverse data set which contains satellite-based images. So we can see a trend that once we move from generic data sets towards the data sets which are more diverse and has high domain shifts, the Maple per class accuracy against the CoCop also increases. So the conclusion is Maple is favorable for those data sets that has high domain shifts and have much diversity in their classes. So in order to conclude this work, existing prompt learning methods adapt CLIP partially. They either tweak only the language branch, or in some cases, they only adapt the vision branch, but they adapt it partially. So in order to do complete prompting, we proposed a multimodal prompting paradigm, which had 3 main contributions. First of all, we adapt both branches of CLIP for multimodal representation learning. We also integrated vision language deep prompting for hierarchical context learning. And lastly, to establish the explicit interaction between both types of prompts, we introduced vision language prompt coupling function. And in terms of performance, Maple have improved the generalization of CLIP towards 3 downstream tasks. And all the code and pre-trained weights are also available on the GitHub repository. So now I will proceed with the second follow-up work, which is also related to the prompt learning. And the title of this work is Self-Regulating Prompts, Foundational Model Adaptation Without Forgetting. And this work has been accepted to ICCV 23 this year. So now let's discuss some more details about the prompt learning. So far we have seen that prompt learning has emerged as an effective alternative for fine-tuning CLIP-like models. And so far a plethora of works have been proposed so far, such as the co-op, which tweaks the language side, and then our Maple method, which tweaks both sides. So these are like a lot of methods as well. But there is one thing in common with all of these methods. The majority of focus in those works is towards the architectural improvement. So they mostly improve or aim to improve the model performance by tweaking the architecture. So what we have noticed is that all of these models are typically trained using the task-specific loss functions. So for example, if I want to train my model on ImageNet, I will use cross-entropy loss for the training. So there is one issue, or you can say one trend, but if you just use the task-specific objective, this will encourage the prompts to learn the downstream task-specific representations. So the task-specific representations are suitable for my downstream dataset. So what is the issue if I just learned a task-specific representation? We have noticed is that there is a phenomena called prompt overfitting. So the prompts tends to overfit on the task-specific data distribution on which my training samples are available. So this will improve the performance on the training classes, but it will kind of lose the original generalization capability of the frozen clip model for other classes and for other data sets. So this trend is also visualized in this figure. So the blue line shows the base class performance for which we have the training samples available. And the green line or the green curve shows the normal class performance for which we do not have any training examples. And the x-axis shows the epochs, the learning schedule, and the y-axis shows the performance. So we can see that with these prompt learning methods, if we undergo more and more training, my base class performance gradually increases. And this is expected because I have training examples available and I'm training my model for more longer epochs. But at the same time, for the novel classes for which I do not have any training samples, my performance substantially decreases as we undergo more training. So this is the phenomena which we call as prompt overfitting, that the prompts are favoring the base class performance, but eventually we are compromising on the novel classes or compromising on the new data sets. And one thing to note is that the light green curve shows the performance of the clip zero shot model. So indirectly we are also decreasing the performance of the original foundation model as well on the new classes, but at the cost of we just improve the performance on the base classes. So in this work we aim to mitigate this prompt overfitting issue. So our solution which we have proposed is prompt learning with self-regularizing constraints. In short, we call it prompt SRC. So prompt SRC basically aims to prompt or to learn such a prompt representations that can model both the task specific as well as task agnostic representations. So the task specific representations, as we discussed earlier, are suitable for downstream data sets. For example, if I want to fine tune my clip model or ImageNet, I will need task specific representations. And we have observed that these task specific representations are captured in the prompted image and text features. At the same time, we also want to learn task agnostic representations. And these task agnostic representations are basically helpful for the generalization of clip. So for example, if I want to use clip for zero shot evaluation without any training data, then I will require task agnostic kind of model. And we have noticed that the task agnostic representations are captured in the frozen clip image and text features. So our solution in comparison with the existing solution is also kind of visualized in this figure. So we have two solution manifolds. The upper manifold is the solution, or you can say generalized clip solution manifold, which is very generalized, which favors the task agnostic benchmarks. And the lower solution manifold is the task specific solution manifold, which mostly favors the task specific representations. So the naive prompt tuning or the existing prompt learning methods, when they are trained on the data set, they converge to a solution manifold, which is mostly task specific. And we can see that this is far away from the solution manifold of a generalized model, due to which we suffer from prompt overfitting. But in contrast, our self-regulating prompt learning technique tries to converge to a solution manifold, which is at the intersection of both the generalized clip solution manifold as well as in the task-specific solution manifold. So we try to maximize the performance of both the cases. And this is where our main work is devoted towards. So our prompt SRC is basically based on three main ideas. The first main module is regularization via mutual agreement maximization. So in this module, we aim to maximize the mutual agreement between the prompted as well as frozen vision language features. Secondly, we use regulation of the prompts with the help of textual diversity. We notice that there is a textual diversity imbalance issue, and we want to mitigate the sample diversity imbalance between the vision and language side during the training process. The third module is regularization with the prompt self-ensembling. So we also propose to use Gaussian weighted sampling technique, which aggregates the prompts which are learned during different stages of the training. So we also evaluate and conduct experimentation across 4 benchmarks. And here we just show the average results over 4 benchmarks and compare it with the previous methods. So we found that our prompt SRC performs favorably well in comparison to the previous methods. So here we show the high-level diagram of our prompt SRC framework. So this framework is also relying on the clip model. So we have the image encoder and a text encoder, which is used in nearly all of the works. So the first module is regularization via mutual agreement maximization. Secondly, we use regularization via textual diversity. And thirdly, we use regularization via prompt self-ensembling. So now we will discuss each module in detail in the next slides. So for the regularization via mutual agreement maximization, we first use the clip encoders to calculate the frozen vision language features, which are F tilde and G tilde, and we also compute the prompted vision language features, which are denoted as F tilde P and G tilde P. So how we calculate them? We just use the prompted model and the frozen model. So for a given training example, if I have an image, I will just pass it directly through the frozen text encoder, frozen image encoder, and I will obtain the frozen image feature, which is F tilde. At the same time, I will again use the training example, the same training image, and I will concatenate the learnable prompts with the image, and then I will pass it to the frozen model to obtain the prompted feature for the image. At the same time, I will also calculate the same thing for the text side, and then I will use feature level self-consistency losses to enforce the mutual agreement between these two types of features. So we also do this at the feature level, as well as we also impose this consistency loss at the logit level. So explicitly what we are doing is we are trying to reduce the embedding distance of the prompted feature with the frozen feature using L1 loss. At the same time, we impose this with the textual branch as well by imposing the L1 loss between the textual prompted feature and the frozen textual feature. And at the logit level, we also reduce the KL divergence of the logit distribution between the prompted model and the frozen model. So the overall loss is the combination of all these losses, which we call as self-consistency losses, where lambda1 and lambda2 are the balancing hyperparameters. And the final loss used for the training is the summation of the fine-tuning loss, which is the normal cross entropy loss, and the self-consistency loss, which we have defined above. So the second module in our prompt SRC framework is to regulate the prompts with textual diversity. So what does this mean? If we look into this architecture, at the image side, we have multiple samples for each class because this is our training data set. So we have multiple images for each class. However, for the text side, we do not have multiple text descriptions for each class. So this is kind of an imbalance at the text side. So a text side contains a single example text description per class. So in order to mitigate this vision language diversity imbalance, we propose textual diversity at the text branch of the clip model. And in particular, what we do is instead of using a single template, we incorporate multiple textual augmentations to introduce more variation and diversity in the text set. So instead of just using, for example, a photo of a cat, instead of just using this template, we will introduce a lot of more templates of the same class as well, such as a drawing of a cat, a sketch of a cat, and etc. So this will mitigate that sample diversity imbalance at the text side. And then we will use the kind of augmentation in sampling to represent the frozen text feature. So previously the frozen text feature used in the self-consistency loss was only using a single text description for each label. Now we will use augmentations, and then we will take the average of those augmentation to represent the frozen text feature. And we have found that with this more diverse examples, the final generalization performance improves. And the third component in our framework is regularization with prompt self-ensembling. What we have noticed is that during the early stage of training, the early epoch prompts kind of acts as a regularizer because of their random initialization. Because they are not fully trained, so they are kind of acting as a noise. But at the later stage of the training, particularly the end epoch prompts, they are highly task specific, which means that they are more towards prompt overfitting. So in order to achieve the best in the whole training schedule, we propose Gaussian weighted prompt aggregation, which in short we call as GPA. So what we do is we try to aggregate the prompts learned at each training stage with the help of weighted aggregation. And the weights are sampled from the Gaussian distribution. So what we do is from I is equal to 1 to E, these are the prompts learned at different stages of the training. For example, at epoch 1 up to epoch E, we aggregate all the prompt vectors with the weighted scaling. And the weights are obtained from the Gaussian distribution. So it is also kind of visualized in this figure. So I have a set of prompts learned in the first epoch. I have prompts learned in the second epoch up to E epochs. And then I will try to aggregate those representations or those weights with the help of weighted averaging. And the weights are sampled with the help of Gaussian distribution. So as we can see that with this Gaussian distribution, we are providing relatively lower weights to the initial epochs because we know that they are mostly acting as a noise. At the same time, for the middle stages and for the middle epochs, we are kind of providing more weight because those are the right kind of prompts which are suitable for the final performance. And again, we are providing relatively less weight to the last epochs because they are highly prone to overfitting. And after this aggregation, we form our final prompt representations which are used for the inference process. So now let's again revisit the prompt overfitting figure. So here the dark curves shows our prompt SRC framework, while the dotted lines and the light curves shows the baseline model, which does not utilize any of the self-consistency loss. So this baseline here is IVLP, which stands for Independent Visual Language Prompting. So for the base classes, and just to revise, the base classes are those classes for which we have the training data set available. So for the base classes, we see that both the baseline and our prompt SRC roughly performs the same. And this is expected because we are using supervised training samples to train the model. But for the case of novel classes, which is represented with the orange color, we see that the baseline substantially decreases its performance because of the prompt overfitting method as we undergo more training. But in contrast, our prompt SRC novel class performance is also kind of maintained even though we trained more and more. So this is the benefit of using regularization framework with normal prompt learning methods, which aims to maximize the base class performance and also maintains the novel class performance as well. So which mitigates the prompt overfitting phenomena. And this also leads to the highest harmonic mean, which is the metric used, which denotes the combined relationship between the base class and novel class performance. So the harmonic mean is also increasing for the case of prompt SRC. So in terms of experimentation, here we conduct evaluation on 4 different benchmarks. So the first 3 are the same benchmarks as we used in our previous work, such as base to novel generalization, cross data set evaluation, and domain generalization. And we additionally incorporate another benchmark, which is called as few shot experiments, in which we just undergo supervised training with different shots available for each class. So it varies from 1, 2, and goes up to 16. So again, we first show the effect of individual components in our solution. So the first row is the baseline, which is independent vision language prompting. It shows very good performance on the base class, but the novel class performance is very deteriorated because of the prompt overfitting. So when we incorporate our self-consistency loss on top of the baseline, we maintain the base class accuracy, but also the novel class accuracy is substantially improved from 71% to around 75%. After incorporating the GPA, which is the Gaussian weighted prompt aggregation, we roughly maintain the base class performance, but further improve the novel class performance. And with the textual diversity, we improve the base class accuracy as well as the novel class accuracy, which leads to the highest harmonic mean of 79.97%. So now we compare our method with the existing state-of-the-art method. So the first benchmark is base to novel generalization benchmark. Here we show the result of prompt SRC for base, novel, and their harmonic mean. So we can see that against the previous SOTA method, which is the Maple, we consistently improve on the base class as well as on the novel classes performance. So this sets a new kind of benchmark numbers on this setting. Then for the few shot experimentation, we show the results in the form of graphs. So here the conclusion is that prompt SRC provides improvements across all the shots. So the first figure shows the average results over 11 data sets. So here the orange line denotes our result, and the other curves are for the existing methods. So on average, we perform consistently or at least equal to the other methods. So this also shows that our self-consistency losses are not kind of restricting the model to learn on the supervised data set. So it is also benefiting the supervised case classes as well. And for the case of only one shot, in which we have only one example for each class, we are obtaining an absolute improvement of 3.1% against all the methods. So this is like very encouraging, because this is the extreme data scarce setting that we have only a single sample for each training class. So we also explore some additional experiments with our prompt SRC method. So particularly, we note that our main results are based on CLIP model, but CLIP is relatively outdated, because right now there have been many other new models which have much better performance than CLIP. So we wanted to see that whether our prompt SRC can generalize to recent vision language models or not. So we experimented with the prompt SRC method with the EVA CLIP model. So EVA CLIP is, you can say, the very recent vision language model, which has much better performance than the normal CLIP model. So here we also observe that prompt SRC incorporated with EVA CLIP also shows absolute 3.72% of improvement for the novel classes. So here the baseline is again IVLP, and on top of our IVLP, we incorporate the self-consistency modules, which leads to performance specifically or especially in the novel class setting. We also try to see if our prompt SRC can generalize to other applications as well. So here we experiment with the video recognition task. So we integrate our prompt SRC with the Wi-Fi clip model, which is a video action recognition model. And here we show the results on the UCF 101 video dataset, where the prompt SRC again consistently shows improvements over the previous method, which includes the baseline IVLP as well as all the other methods which are typically or which are specially designed for video tasks. So we also kind of performs better in comparison to those models. So this shows that our regularization framework can also generalize to other task other than image classification. So to conclude, the existing prompt learning methods majorly focus on architectural improvements, and because of that, they tend to overfit on the task-specific objectives. And this leads to poor generalization, specifically on the novel classes and other datasets. In order to address these challenges, we propose a self-regularization framework for prompt learning, and our module or our framework is basically based on three main ideas. Firstly, we incorporate mutual agreement maximization between the prompted and frozen features. Secondly, we incorporate textual diversity to improve the text side regularization. Thirdly, we also incorporate self-ensembling strategy for the prompt learning with the help of GPA module. And this leads to improvement of clip over the clip model towards 4 downstream benchmarks. And for this project, also we have released the code and the pre-trained models, and it is publicly available. So that's it for my talk. So thank you very much, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammad Azhar. So the talk was really wonderful and very informative. So now I would request participants to, if they have some questions, so they may ask. Madam?
Just wish to know the experimental setup.
So yeah, we can come. So Azhar, we have one query. So
yes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, wonderful results. I wish to know your experimental setup. Can you just describe it?
Yes. So our experimental setup is basically. So you mean the benchmarks on which we are performing?
Yes.
Or
and
yes.
Models.
Okay. So in terms of the benchmarks, we are doing experiments on 4 different settings. The first one is based to novel generalization setting. So in this setting, we have total 11 data sets. And for each data set, sorry.
So she is more interested for system specification.
Okay.
The
okay.
Hardware, all those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Environment setting.
Okay, got it. So for these projects, for example, we mainly use clip model, and the clip variant which we are using is B by 16, which can efficiently run on any mid-grade GPU. For example, in our case, we used a single A100 to run these experiments. So that was, I think, 40 GB GPU, and these experiments are relatively faster because we are keeping the model frozen and we're just learning the prompts. So for example, if I show you here, so the text encoder and the image encoder are frozen. So we just learned the prompt vectors. So this is very fast in terms of training. So the whole set of experiments, we can conclude it into 2 to 3 hours on a single A100 GPU.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No
so, audience, any other questions? So, I think no more questions. So once again, thank you very much, Mohammad Azhar. So it was a privilege that we invited you and you had a very wonderful session. So once again, thank you very much.
No problem. And thank you to you as well for the kind invitation. So to the participants, so I will also, yes.
Yes, you go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So for the participants, I will also encourage the interested people to look into the GitHub repository for these projects, where we have mentioned more exact specifications, that how many GPUs are required, the training logs, the pre-trained weights if you want to reproduce the results. So everything is present on the GitHub repo. So for example, for the multimodal prompt learning, so we have released all the related code which you can use to reproduce or just start working on it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you once again. So I hope that again I would invite you for such kind of sessions. So thank you, Azhar.
Yes, no problem. I will be looking forward to it. Thank you once again.